Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Max Porterfield on the line, and he's CEO and president at Callinex Mines. Max, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
All right, Max. So excited to get into Callinex Mines and to talk about the developments that you're working on. But before we do that, we'll start this show like we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Max, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Max, what mission matters to you?
Well, a mission that matters that's close to me is obviously Callinex Mines and our mission and what we're on to. And that's really long-term job creation through discovery of economic base metals and precious metals rich VMS deposits in Canada. Most notably, there's a town called Flin Flon, Manitoba that we're focused our exploration on. And it's in deep need of a discovery. It's been mining there for 100 years continuously. And the flagship mine there is due to shut down next year. Wow. And our long-term mission has been to find the next mine for that community. And we hit the rainbow discovery. So that's been a long-term mission. And fold with that, and in tandem, I should say, it's also to really feed the world's appetite for these critical metals as the world shifts away from the hydrocarbons. So we're looking to not only help on the community level, but also on the macroeconomic level, feeding that critical supply of these metals in an environmentally sustainable way.
That's great. And love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on the line to really share why they do what they do, like what wakes them up in the morning, what gets them fired up to go out there and make a difference. So appreciate you sharing that with us. And we'll go further into Callinex Mines for sure. I want to know about some of these developments you're mentioning. But before we do, how'd you get started like in the mining business? Like tell us a little bit more about your story.
Well, I was born and raised in Texas, actually West Texas where I was born. So I had West Texas intermediate oil in my blood, so to speak, and resources from a very young age. Then I got my career started at a firm called U.S. Global Investors, and it was a boutique investment firm that specialized in natural resource investing. Mm-hmm. And spent about 5.5 years there really focusing on attracting capital that would be then invested in these natural resources companies. And then I wanted to take my talents elsewhere, and I immigrated to Canada in 2012. I actually became a Canadian citizen in 2019, so I'm a dual citizen. And I began working on the corporate side for two pretty well-known junior exploration companies, a uranium-focused one and a gold-focused one. Mm. And then the opportunity came along to join Callinex, and it was the best decision I made in my life to date. And I joined in 2014. And refocused on our longer term vision, which is to discover high grade, in particular gold, copper rich deposits in Canada in a safe jurisdiction. So that's what we're on to and kind of how I got here.
Fantastic. And so, it's interesting that you tell me, going from Texas to Canada to start, like it was in your blood at first, oil, now you're going on to mining precious metals. There's some people watching this right now that have maybe considered that as a career or as, there's this mystique around it, and they're going in that direction. Like what kind of things would you tell that young budding entrepreneur, let's just say that's just getting started, that kind of is exploring that type of industry? What kind of things would you tell them?
Well, I mean, it's a cyclical business, so it's not for the faint of heart. I think that in general, you've got to realize that it's volatile. So it is a cycle, and the cycles that do play out. And really, when you can have an opportunity to enter a cycle at the right time and ride that cycle, you can obviously do really, really well for yourself. And we're really in the tailwind or very early stages of a big cycle here that's going to be driven multiple facets. But mine supply is one of the key ones, and then of course this big shift in demand drivers. So it's a very, very exciting business. Again, the ups and downs, and I think you've got to have the ability to really persevere because it is challenging. It's not if it was easy, everybody would do it, so to speak, in terms of exploration. But at the end of the day, it is very, very rewarding.
Fantastic. So let's go further into Callinex Mines. So you told us a little bit. Let's go further. So tell us a little bit more about the company.
Yeah, so we're focused again in Canada. We've got assets across Canada in key jurisdictions. So oftentimes, if you look at an exploration company, they'll be exploring, but they'll be in geopolitically unstable areas where there's really a higher risk profile in a lot of ways. And they'll also be very, very remote. And the key thing is when you're really, really remote, your upfront, exploration costs are going to be much higher because you got to take the people out there.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's dependent on helicopter access, those type of things. So you have much higher exploration costs. In addition to that, you have upfront capital costs that are in the hundreds of millions of dollars in many instances, because you've got to get the people, power, water, road access out to these very, very remote locations. And what we're focused is, again, having our portfolio focused around key Canadian mining jurisdictions. So we're in a tier 1 asset, so very, very low risk profile from a geopolitical standpoint, this rule of law. And you've got this endowment that's been shown to be there, which is why you have the skilled workforce, as well as the infrastructure in place. So that leads to lower upfront capital costs, much faster permitting timelines, I believe, and you can transition and grow very, very quickly at much lower cost than a lot of other peers out there.
And so to say that you're bought in on Callinex mines would be an understatement. According to some of the info I was given, like you've invested heavily in the company yourself, and like you're bought into the company overall. So I think that's a very interesting thing and dynamic. Tell us a little bit more about like kind of like what made you have that choice to do that, just to go all in.
Well, I mean, I think that you come to an impasse in your life in anything that you're doing, and you got to bid on yourself. Oftentimes, if you're investing in the stock market, you're bidding on someone else and another jockey. When you're an entrepreneur and you're running a public company, in this instance, or it's private, it's the same kind of situation. I think you got to bet on yourself, and that's really where you're ultimately going to have a big win in terms of for monetary, reasons. Is when you invest in yourself, and if you believe in others more than you believe in yourself, well, that's fine. But in my instance, I really believe in what we're doing, what we're on to, and ultimately, I believe in the company and its objectives.
And so this bet's paid off as of late. I mean, the stock price has risen. I mean, what, 700% or so in recent months. And I could be a little off on that, but I think over 700%. What are some of the things that maybe you attribute that to?
Yeah, so I mean, the stock did bottom out at around 35 cents a share in 2020, and it has hit a high as 650, and I'm talking Canadian dollars, where our shares are primarily listed on, just for clarity on that. So today we're trading around 250, and so we had a big move. I think it's very, very early in our growth profile in terms of evaluation. It's very, very cheap, just a $30 million Canadian market cap today. And what that's attributable to is to the discovery of really Rainbow is a very critical discovery. And it's an exceptionally high grade copper gold discovery in Manitoba, just outside of that town of Flin Flon, like I mentioned. It has direct road access, sits within 200 meters of a hydroelectric power line. So it's clean, low cost power within a mineral lease. So it's advanced permitting. And again, it couldn't be a better time. In terms of grades, it's going to be one of the highest grade copper discoveries in the world. Wow. In terms of average copper grades that are mined globally, it's 0.5% copper. And in terms of the grades we've announced in Rainbow to date, we're averaging north of 4% copper, as well as it includes gold, silver, and zinc as byproducts, which is indicative of these deposits in Flin Flon. So it's an exceptionally discovery. We're very, very excited about that. And that's going to be what's the key growth driver for the company, is really unlocking a Rainbow and delineating that, which is what we spent the bulk of this year on.
Amazing. It's huge news. And you're drilling as we speak, right? Like currently?
Yes. So we've announced that we had a 30,000 meter fully funded drilling campaign. We actually have exceeded that. We've done north of 34,000 meters. We just announced this morning year to date at the project area. We've been slow in terms of laboratory, has been slow in terms of returning assay results. So that's been a bit delayed. So there's a big pipeline of news flow that's going to be coming out, because we've only been able to announce just over 18,000 meters and still have over 17,000 meters to announce and pending. So we're very, very excited about what we're on to. And now we're in the process of delineating the discovery. So this is the really, in terms of mining business, the most exciting part of the industry, because there's three phases. There's exploration, there's development, and production. And exploration is where you go out and you make that discovery. more often than not, when you're looking at a lot of the peers out there, they'll be oftentimes going back to an old discovery, an old deposit, and maybe growing it or not, what the previous operators didn't appreciate. In Rainbow, our initial discovery hole was in August of 2020. So that was the first hole into it. We discovered it at depth at 900 meters underground. And since that time, we've got drilling up to 35 meters that are pending assays, vertical depth. So it has the potential to be one of the more shallow discoveries in the Flin Flon district's history. And with that, it really leads to an opportunity for much shorter development timelines, as well as permitting, given the situation the town faces right now. So we're very, very excited about everything going on in Manitoba for our shareholders, obviously, but more importantly, what's been guiding us is that community out there.
Amazing. And so tell us a little bit more about the just about the mechanics of the company itself. So you have award-winning geologists you're working with. Like, tell us more about that.
Yeah. So in terms of what we do is we go out and we have exploration properties. Some have existing resources. We've got some sizable resources in the Maritimes, in New Brunswick and Newfoundland. And then we go out and use our technical team that we've built here at Callinex, and you use different tool sets, whether it be geophysics, geochemical, geology, obviously. And then we go out and test those theses using the drill bit ultimately. And our technical team has long track record, not only a long track record, a successful track record, I should say, most importantly, in the discovery of these deposits that go on to be producing mines. Most notably, our former chairman and the founder of the company, my mentor and his member of our team, Mike Maslowski, is a member of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame for the discovery of 12 VMS deposits that have gone into production in Manitoba alone. Wow. He also won Developer of the Year award for a very large gold deposit called the Hycroft Mine, Nevada, before his track record. We've got a member Jim Piquel and Alan Valls, both won the Bill Dennis Award. Was essentially like getting the best film and an Oscar for the best film of the year. So awesome. in exploration, we're credited with that for the biggest discovery in North America. Each of them have won that award for 2 different discoveries in the Flin Flon camp. So the Flin Flon camp, has a history of 32 mines that have gone in production. And there's really kind of an 80-20 rule in terms of production, in terms of really the largest ones account for 80% of the production history. And our technical teams found 3 of the 4 largest of those mines in the camp's history, with the exception of the original Flin Flon mine. So again, we've got a team that's done it before. We've assembled the team to do it again at a really unprecedented time for the town now. And with Rainbow, we feel that we're at the very early stages of that potential and that opportunity. And so again, that's kind of what we're on to. That's the team that you mentioned. And obviously I'm passionate about it, but it's just not myself. Our team's just as passionate as I am. And they've not only done it once, but they've done it multiple times over.
And the company itself, so no debt, right? Tell us a little bit more about the financials and just the structure.
Yeah, so the company is very tightly held. That's one of the things I think. I spent the first 5-6 years at Callinex, very young in my career. I joined I just turned 31 when I became CEO of the company. And so with that, there was a lot of learning that was involved with that. And so one of the key things is your structure is critical in any capital public company, public vehicle. Yeah. And so we did do a restructuring the company in 2019. We rolled back the treasury, so the shares. So we have 13.4 million shares outstanding today. As you mentioned earlier, I'm a very large shareholder. Myself and my family collectively own roughly 15% of the shares out. We've got very, very strong institutional support at 31% by institutions and family offices. And that includes Resource Capital Funds, the EMA Fund out of Boston, Northfield Capital, SSI, Commodity Discovery Fund, Gold 2000. Those are some European family offices and institutional funds. So we've got a very solid shareholder registry, as well as Delbrook out of here in Vancouver, which is really key. So it's very tightly held, very low float, and no debt on the balance sheet, which again, as a company that doesn't generate, I really don't think we're at a stage to take on debt. So that's kind of where we are in terms of a capital structure standpoint. I think that puts us in a very, very nice position to perform very, very well. And not only a rising market with everything going on, kind of really fundamentally that's in the metal's favor right now, but also in the midst of an emerging discovery. So hitting a discovery is one thing, but hitting a discovery at the right time, at the right place with the right capital structures, I think going to lead us to be a very, very special story on the market to that end.
I don't want to assume that people understand what that last statement is that you made. Like, talk about the idea of leverage and what that means, especially with prices and otherwise.
Yeah, so I mean, to create real value in the company like ourselves is it's really like a biotech company where you're doing a lot of research and development on a drug formula, so to speak. We're trying to cure cancer or some kind of ailment. What we're doing is research and development on exploring for metals in the ground, and it's really exploring for buried treasure, so to speak. And so that's what we're on to. And the way we de-risk the asset is putting holes into the ground. Obviously, we start with an exploration thesis, and then we make a discovery, and then we delineate that discovery, and that's how we drive real value. And then ultimately, we can go on to a development stage into production, or oftentimes, more often than not, the way the sector works is that an exploration company will be acquired by a big producer that needs to backfill their production profile in terms of they need feed for the future, like Hudbay's case potentially in the town of Flin Flon. They've got all the infrastructure there, but they've got no mine to feed in that infrastructure, and they have a very large reclamation liability that's associated with that. And so what I mean by that is when you hit a discovery, it's one thing to hit a discovery in a bad market where there's not an appetite for what you're looking for in general, say $2 copper, in a lower copper price environment. It's another thing to hit a discovery where you have the wind behind your sails and you have a rising copper price environment. And that's what we really have going on in the macroeconomic. Not only are you in an inflationary environment by printing globally, and that really the deficits that are being run globally, but in addition to that, you've got government policy being put in place that's going to be a big, big demand shift for these metals at a time where you've had a lack of investment on the mine supply side for exploration because you haven't had the pricing environment there. I mean, in a low price environment, there's not big incentives for companies like Callinex to go on and discover for new mines. And so with that being said, you've got this shift where everyone's shifting away from the hydrocarbon or oil and gas, and they want to replace that. But the only way you do that is with metals. Batteries are run by metals. The charging stations need metals. And copper is a really critical metal for that, as well as the fact that you also have government policy being put in place globally for infrastructure spending. And they call base metals for a reason, because they're really the building blocks for the global economy. Anytime you have global infrastructure spending, you're going to have additional big demand on base metals. So you've got big shifts due to government policy at a time when you have limited mine supply. So you have rising prices. And then we're in a position with a tight capital structure that's tightly held. So there's limited supply in terms of shares out for Callinex in general, and hitting the discovery that we're hitting at a very unique time on the microeconomic factor. If you look at the community level and the deep, deep need for a new mine to fill that need. Because, I mean, you're talking a town that's a mining town. It's 5,500 people. It employs currently 785 of those people. So those are direct jobs. That are forecasted to go down to 50 jobs by 2023. So there's an immediate need, and there's an immediate need for action by policymakers, the community, and of course ourselves in our discovery and then what we're looking to do for that community.
What an amazing story. And I'm just so happy to bring you on the show, Max, to get to know more about yourself, of course, Callinex, and just the difference that you're making out there. And what a time to hit. Like you said, that's why I had to have you elaborate. And I'm like, wait a minute, you got to go a little bit further on that one for me, because it's an amazing time to, as you said, when the demand, the shift to strike and to strike the new discovery, like all these things are lining up in a great way, which ultimately we would hope would result in, value in share price, value in all these other things. Are there any, you mentioned one site, are there any others that you care to speak on or to give us any updates on that Callinex is working on currently?
Yes, certainly. So we do have a deeper portfolio than Rainbow. Rainbow is going to be really our exclusive focus moving forward. I mean, for obvious reasons that we kind of go over. But in addition to that, we also have, in terms of valuation, is backfilled by some really great assets, again, in close proximity and infrastructure. In New Brunswick, we've got our Nash Creek project, where we have a PEA stage zinc lead asset. So PEA is preliminary economic assessment for the zinc deposit that's there as a zinc lead deposit. And what's unique about that, it's flat lying near surface. So it's open pittable, is what's envisioned by the PEA. which is much lower upfront capex, of course, because you don't need to do underground development, as well as operating costs. And it sits right along a provincial highway, 25 kilometers away from a deep water port. A rail line gives you access to market, as well as a power station. So that's very, very key as a great asset at a time where recently the United States has just made zinc a strategic metal. So zinc is the fourth most consumed metal in the world, and it's heavily used for the galvanization of steel. So obviously it's very, very critical for infrastructure projects. But again, it's got a limited mine supply as well globally. It's been constricted. So it's a very, very strategic asset, not only what it is, but where it's located is very, very unique. And we hit near surface silver discoveries that we followed up there along a favorable trend. So there is exploration upside in New Brunswick. And then additionally in Newfoundland, we just announced a near surface, it's a gold, copper, zinc resource called Point Leamington. It's a sizable, nearly over 19 million ton resource there, pit constrained. So again, open pittable within a mineral lease, 35 kilometers away from a town called Grand Falls, Windsor, which is again a mining community out there in Newfoundland, Canada. And you also have access to hydroelectric power. And I mentioned hydroelectric power in Manitoba earlier, but why that's so key in these instances, in Manitoba's case, is not only when you're hitting exceptionally high grade copper, we have an opportunity to be powered by very low cost, clean power. You have the potential not only to save a town, so to speak, but you have the potential to be producing one of the cleanest copper concentrates in the world. So as the world shifts away from the hydrocarbon and you want to rely on having a clean future, the cleanest way to do that is with the highest grade deposits that are being powered by a clean power source like hydroelectric power. And I think that's one of the key benefits of Canada in some of these jurisdictions like Manitoba and Newfoundland that really stands out on a global basis.
Fantastic. Well, Max, I mean, this has been great having you on the show today and to learn more about you, your background, of course, all the great work you're doing over at Callinex Mines and your mission behind doing that. That being said, if somebody is watching this right now and they want to learn more about Callinex Mines, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. You can go to our website at callinex.ca. You can learn more about the company and our projects and the news flow that we've had in the past, and obviously stay tuned for future news there as well. And then if you're inclined to become a shareholder of the company, you can do so in the U.S. On the OTC. We trade under the ticker CLLXF, and then on the Toronto Venture Exchange on the TSXV, the ticker CNX is our primary listing. So again, callinex.ca for more information. And we trade both in the U.S. and Canada.
Fantastic. And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes so that our audience can just go click on the links and go check out the site, to go check out the stock, of course. Again, Max, awesome having you on the show. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time visiting with us and watching, just letting you know at Mission Matters, we're all about amplifying stories of entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. We want them to share why they do what they do, talk about how they're adding value to the society. If you're into content like that, definitely hit that subscribe button. We have many more mission-based entrepreneurs and executives coming on the line. And Max, thanks again for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me.